Okay, we are in Masechet Eruvin, Daf Sadi, to review the main points we said from yesterday. We're talking about cases of roofs, and today will be more variations. But here's the main things we said in the Mishnah. We saw machloket between Rabbi Meir and Chachamim. Rabbi Meir is more lenient. He says if you have roofs that are all attached, if one is higher than the other, 10 tefachim, then it's no good. You can't carry from one to the other. But if they're all level, then you can carry along the entire thing. In other words, even though they're owned individually, it doesn't matter. But once it goes on the roof, it's like one big courtyard, and so you can carry from one to the next. That's to be Meir. Hachamim, however, say, no, just like there's ownership below, so too there's ownership above. And even if they're level, you can only carry within your own roof, and next guy can only carry within his roof. So that's Chachamim, they're more Machmir. Okay, within Chachamim, and for the Bimiyad also, we had a machloket between Rav and Shemuel. Rav says that when you have adjacent roofs, you can only actually carry 4 amot, not along the whole roof, according to Chachamim, and according to the Bimiyad. Why? Well, because you can see it better here. He says if you have your own area, your own a detached house, then that's fine. You can carry along the whole thing because the walls continue up, good asik. But when they're attached, then the middle wall that they share is hidden. And so Rav would say, you do not say good asik when there's a hidden wall. Shemuel, however, is more lenient and says, yes, you can say good asik even in a hidden wall, and therefore you can carry in the entire thing. According to Chachamim, you can carry on your entire roof, or according to the Beit Meir, you can carry along all of them if they are level. Okay, so that was Rav and Shemuel. The only confusing thing we're going to see today is that Rav and Shemuel are going to switch their opinions in other cases. But for right now, Rav is the one that's Machmir and says you can only go 4 amot, and that 4 amot cannot be from here to there. If these are attached, right, then you can't even, if you're here, you can't even go 2 amot this way and 2 amot that way. You can't cross over this line because there is no wall here. Right, we do not say good asik, and that is a problem. Okay, and so that will lead us right into the question that we start off with. Ba'ed ami bar hama, shete amot bagag ushte amot ba'amud mahu. So he's asking, you just told me, according to Rav, in the opinion of Chachamim, I cannot carry, if it's 2 roofs from one roof to the other, not even 2 amot. But what if it's 2 on a roof and 2 on a pillar? A pillar that's 10 tefachim wide and 10 tall and 4 wide, which would make it a reshut hayachid. So now, what kind of question is that? That's not a good question. If I had a roof and then a pillar next to it, the roof is a karmelit, according to Rav, because he doesn't consider the last wall, the attached wall, to be a wall, and the pillar is a reshut hayachid. So there's no way, no one thinks you can carry from a karmelit to the reshut hayachid. So that's not a good question. Vedami bar chama agav churpeh lo iyen ba. He says you're right. Rami bar chama he misspoke because he's so sharp. He's like absent-minded professor. He was thinking so deeply about the issue that he didn't formulate it correctly. But here's what he meant to say. That's the question. We have a roof, and it is adjacent to achsadra as a portico, which means it has a roof but no walls. So this case, so I know from a roof to a rooftop, it's no good. Why? Because my rooftop is something that I use. I reside in there, and so therefore, even the rooftop is in some way my residence. And if you live next door in your house, then that's your residence, and the rooftop is in some sense your residence also. So that's 2 different residences. So that's the problem when there's 2 houses. But here, nobody lives. Nobody lives in a portico, so it's not quite a residence. So here's the 2 sides of the question. Some Should we say that since they're both not fit for residence, so they're all the same? Now, this formulation, yes, I have to explain it better. This is fit for residence. I live here, but the point is that since they're not both fit for residence, so then the fact that one is and one isn't doesn't make a difference, and so therefore there's no difference in residence between the two, and so therefore I might say that in this case Rav would agree that it's okay, and I can cross the boundary because they're all considered the same type. That there's no difference in residence. It's not mine and yours. Maybe I would say that. Or Dilma, and then it would be allowed. Or Dilma, kevan de migag legag asir, migag lachsadanami asir. Or is Rav's point, that doesn't matter who owns it and who uses it. The point is that it's one roof and then another roof. It's a different structure. And that's the reason why it's prohibited with two houses. And it doesn't matter what kind of structure it is. It's not the living in it or ownership that matters. It's just the fact that it's two structures. Okay, so that we're going to leave that question open and add another question to it. What if next to this house was not a portico, but rather a ruin? All right, a house that is a dilapidated house that, I mean, you could live in it if you fix it up a little, but right now it's empty. What about that case? Now, Amar Rav Kahana, Lav Hainu de Rami Bar Chama, Rav Kahana asks Rab Bevai, you're asking the same question as Rami Bar Chama. Why are you adding another question? Amar Bevai Bar Abaye, V'chi me'acher atay unsai. So the Bevai says, well, you think I'm coming late just to make trouble, right? Or other people read it, V'chi me'acher. Atai, you think I just stole a question from him and is asking it again to cause trouble? I'm not just adding more things for no reason. I have a real question here. Because after all, this is not fit for residence. I'm asking about a place that is fit for residence, a ruin. So I'm asking a different question than Rami Bar Chama. Okay, but now his question doesn't quite make sense. If it's fit for residence, then what are you asking, right? That was our original case, was two homes next to each other, and we said that's not allowed. So now if you have a ruin that is fit for residence, isn't that the same as two homes? No, not quite the same. What I'm asking is, depending on how you would answer the first question, if you decide that in this case, because there's nobody there, and so you say that so there's nobody there, so therefore it's permitted to carry, then how about the ruin? The ruin is fit for residence, but there's no one actually living there. So what is the determining factor in making this prohibited? Is it the fact that I'm living here and you're living here? It's a house, and that's why it's prohibited, but any other case would be okay? Or is it the fact that this is fit for residence and a ruin would also be fit for residence and that would be prohibited? Or is it simply because it's two roofs on two structures and the residence doesn't make a difference? And in that case, this would be prohibited in the portico. All right, we leave all that open. We leave the question standing. So these are good, important principles to clarify, but we don't have any sources to answer the question. Okay, next. So now that we established that, we're going to go back to the machloket between Rav and Shemuel and actually talk about other cases where they switch their opinions. So again, in a standard case of joint adjacent roofs, Rav says that we don't consider the middle wall to be a wall, and therefore you can only go 4 amot. It's like a karmelit. Whereas Shemuel says it does have all the walls. We do consider the middle wall a wall, and therefore it's like a reshut echid, and you can carry along your entire top, or according to the Bimeir, and all of them. Okay, that was this case of the Mishnah, and now we're going to say the opposite cases. Rav Amar mutala taltel bechulo. I skipped a line. Gagin hashavin l'Rabbi Meir, v'gag yechidi l'Rabbanan. Now, if they are in fact all the same level according to the Rabbi Meir, right? We said yesterday, if there are different levels, he has a gezerah, because if you have to go up 10 tefachim, it's going to look like a post in the Shut Rabim, and then you're going to think that will be allowed to rest your load that you're carrying in Shut Rabim. Okay, but if they're all even, the Bimei says you can carry across all the roofs. And if it's just my roof alone, separate, all right, according to Rabbanan, and I can carry the whole thing. Rav Amar mutal tatil bechulo. V'Shmuel Amar en metaltin bo ela ba'amot. Rav says I can carry it across the entire, either all the roofs or one roof, and Shmuel says only for amot. Now this is strange because now this is the opposite. But not to worry. Rav Amar mutal tatil bechulo. Kashya de Rav aderav. How are we going to resolve what he said before and what he says here? Hatam la min kera mechisata. Before we were talking about a case of adjacent roofs, and so the middle wall is not seen, and I do not say good asik, and therefore don't have walls. Hacha min kera mechisata. But now we're dealing with a separate building. And so I can see the walls. So actually, this is pretty obvious. And so therefore, if I have all the walls, then it's a reshut hayachid. That's fine. I can carry around the whole thing. Okay. There's a printing error in the Quran here. They printed Shemuel twice. This is actually called a dotography. Scribes make this mistake all the time, but you don't usually find it in a modern printed edition. Okay, but anyway, skip this line. Let's go right to here. Ushmuel Amar and metaltelin bo ela bar ba'amot kashya de Shmuel ad Shmuel. So how come yesterday said you can carry in the whole thing, and in this case you can only carry 4 amot? Hatam la have yoter mi bet satayim, hacha have yoter mi bet satayim. Okay, we're introducing a new limitation here. We're assuming that in the case where when we have all these together, let's say the entire thing is more than 2 bet se'ah. But each one individually is not. Okay, so if let's say they're all the same level and the whole thing is more than 2 bet se'ah, so when they're individualized, so each one is smaller than a bet se'ah. So remember, when you have an enclosed area, like area that has gates, but it's not enclosed for residents, like a karpef, like a storage area, then I can carry within it if it's less than 2 bet se'ah, but if it's more than 2 bet se'ah, then I cannot. So therefore, the one case we had yesterday where we consider the walls in between to be walls, so then this is less than 2 bets, I can carry along the whole thing. This is 2 bets, I can carry along the whole thing. But if I'm considering them all as one, then it's going to be bigger than 1 bet se'ah. Or in the case of separating separate domains, which is what we're talking about now, he's assuming that my separate individual roof is bigger than 2 bet se'ah, and therefore I can only carry 4 amot. But you're right, if it was smaller, then he would be able to carry across the whole thing. So therefore, you see, it's not actually a contradiction, it's just different cases. And even though it didn't say how big it was in the Mishnah or how big it is today, we're assuming that like everything's the same size, and because I own the whole thing, now it's bigger than 2 bet se'ah. If it's connected and it's owned by 2 different people, each one is less than 2 bet se'ah. Okay, so that's how it makes sense according to Shemuel. Okay, good. והנה מחיסות למטה עבידן, למעלה לעבידן. והווה ככרפף יותר מבית סעתיים שלא הוקף לדירה. וכל כרפף יותר מבית סעתיים שלא הוקף לדירה, אין מטלטלין בו אלא בארבע. So this is a key understanding of the reasoning. Why does Shemuel consider this not to be enclosed, not for residents? After all, we live in the building that's underneath, right? So this is actually all residential, and so we have all the walls around, and these are walls that are built for residents. So therefore, it should be like a chatzer, which can be as big as you want. Why is he considering this like a karpef, like a storage area or a garden, which has a size limitation? And the reason is because there are not actually walls here, not like this picture, but more like this picture, right? Imagine there are no actual walls that go up. So we're relying on good asik. Okay, good. You can rely on good asik, but the walls that are imaginarily extending up are not extending up for for residence. Only the actual physical wall is for residence. The rest of it on the roof is not for residence. So therefore, it's like a karpef, and karpef has a size limitation of 2 betse'ah in order to carry in the whole thing. If it's bigger than that, then you can only carry 4 amot. So that's that we're combining, right? When we're using good asik, that's the question. These imaginary walls, are they like real walls? And the wall up below is for residence, so the wall also above is for residence. Rav is saying that, and that therefore Rav is lenient and says you can carry along the whole thing. But Shmuel says the imaginary wall is not considered for residence when the area that's enclosing up here on the roof is not for residence. Okay, so now that we understand that, we're going to apply it to another case, the same principle, to a ship. Right, again, the definition of the walls. Itemar sifina. Rav amar mutal tatel bechula, Shmuel amar en metaltelin ela barba amot. Okay, so a boat, Rav says you can carry anywhere on the boat. We had this case some time ago. Shmuel says, no, you're stuck on the boat. On Shabbat, you can only carry 4 amot. Rav Amar mutalat bechula teha'ika mechisata. So Rav says, what's the problem? The boat has sides, it has walls, and so it's an enclosed area. It's a reshut hayachid. You can carry along the whole thing. Shmuel Amar en metaltilin ba ela barba amot mechisot lehabriach mayim asiyot. He says, no, the walls are there primarily to keep the water out. That's why you have walls on a boat. Now you happen to be using them that, okay, I have an enclosed space that I can live in. But that's not the primary use. That's not the primary reason why the walls are there. And therefore, these are walls that are not made for residence, even if they go above the deck of the ship. It doesn't matter. Even those higher walls, they're not made for residence. And therefore, I am not in a space enclosed for residence. And therefore, we have to consider it not at a shutech, like a karmelit, and I can only walk 4 amot. Okay, pretty interesting. Amar le Rav Chiya bar Yosef l'Shmuel, hilchata kevatach or hilchata kerav? Right, so they asked Shmuel, does the halacha follow you or not, or like Rav? Amar le hilchata kerav. It's an amazing line, right? Even though Shmuel's arguing his case, but he says halacha l'maseh, don't follow me, follow Rav, right? He's more convincing. Oh, what about your opinion? Okay, that's his theoretical opinion, but don't really follow it. Okay, good. Amar Rav Gidel, Amar Rav Chiya bar Yosef. Umodeh Rav shim kefa'al piha shem metaltelin ba ela ba'amot. Now, if you take this boat and bring it on dry land and you turn it upside down, and so now you have like a tent, Rav would agree in that case that you cannot carry, you can only carry 4 amot inside it. Now, why? Kefa'al lemai. Now, why'd you turn it upside down? Ila maladur tachteha. Well, if you turn it upside down because you want to turn the boat into a house, it's no good for a boat anymore. Now I'm going to live in it. So then it's a house. Actually, everyone should agree. Even Shmuel should agree that it's fine because now the walls of the boat are not made to keep out water, but rather to be my home. So there shouldn't be a problem like with that case. Rather, it must be you turned it over to tar it. You want to fix it up. You want to add another coat of tar. In that case, you're turning it upside down. The walls here are not meant for residence. They're not meant for anything. They're only, it's only fixing something. And so therefore, it's not a residential wall, not according to the Shmuel, and not even according to Rav. And so therefore, you could not carry under that while it's on dry land and you're fixing it. Okay, good. Rav Asher matni la asefina. This conversation we had before that Shmuel said, don't follow my halacha, rather follow Rav. So we said this is talking about the boat case. However, this conversation seems to have been remembered independently, and there's a machloket about what it actually applies to. So Rav Asher taught it like that regarding the boat. However, Rav Acha bered Rava matnila achsadra. He applies that conversation to a different case as follows. That itmar achsadra babika. If I have a portico which has a roof but no walls, and it's in the middle of a valley, in the middle of nowhere, not connected to anything. Rav amar mutar letaltel bechula. Shmuel amar en metaltelin ela b'arba amot. So again, Rav is lenient here. You can carry him under the entire portico. Shmuel says no, only for amot. What's the reason? Rav amar mutar letaltel bechula. Amrinan pi tikra yored vesotem. So he has this principle that when you have a portico, you can consider as if the wall. Let me get a picture. As if imagine there's no house here, right? So the roof, we imagine as if it comes down and creates an imaginary wall, right? So he does have that principle. Your eye sees it, and it kind of just seems like you would want to extend this, and so that's considered as if it's a wall, and you have all that on all sides. So you're fine. This is shuta yachid. You can carry in the entire thing, and Shemuel does not. ושמואל אמר אין מטלטלין בה אלא בארבע לאמרינן פי תקרא יורד וסותם. Okay, and it's on this case that they asked, hey, what's the halacha, Shemuel? Should we follow you? And he said, no, you should follow Rav. Good. All right, so now we finished that. We're gonna now apply. We're going to ask about a couple of other variations, not related to this immediate one, but going back to Rav and Shemuel in general. Verav alibad de Meir. Now, according to the Meir, it says you can carry across many roofs if they're all level, right? And Rav says you are allowed to carry far. Litaltele migag lehaser. Now, a gag, that means according to Rav, attached roofs are all considered a shut hayachid, right? That's why I can carry along all of them. Chatzer is also a shut hayachid. So if I have many roofs and then a courtyard next to it, a private courtyard, shouldn't I be able to carry from one to the other? We say no. Gezerah mishum de Rabbi Yitzchak bar Abdimi. The same gezerah we said yesterday, that when they're on different levels, then they make a gezerah, because even though in this case it's a shut hayachid, it should be okay. But I might think that when I go into Shut Harabim, I'll see a pole and I'll say, oh, it's okay, because I'm used to putting things on different levels in this case. So therefore, since the roofs are on one level and the Chatzer is below, that's why the Gezerah applies, according to Rav, according to B'Meir who has this Gezerah. So that's why. But otherwise, technically, you're right. It is both the Reshut HaYachid and the Reshut HaYachid. And now for Shemuel, Ushmuel alibad de Rabbanan. So Shemuel said that according to Rabbanan, I cannot, because let's say he assumes that it's big. It's more than 2 bet se'ah, right? Because I only I own the whole thing. Therefore, since it's like a karpef and it's bigger than 2 se'ah, it's considered a karmelit, and therefore I can only carry 4 amot. So according to Shemuel, nitaltel migag le karpef. So since I have a roof and the roof has a karmelit status, a karpef also has a karmelit status. So since they're both karmelit, I can't carry in them, only 4 amot. But how about if I'm right in the middle on the edge? I can carry 2 amot to the roof and 2 amot to the karpef. That should be permitted because they're both karmelit. So I should be able to carry at least 4 amot within everything that's karmelit, even though they're 2 different kinds of karmelit. Right? So should we say that? Well, technically yes, but we, in this case, Samuel is going to make a gezerah as follows. What if the roof should get smaller? What if some of it should fall in? And so when the roof is bigger than 2 bet se'ah, then it is considered a karmelit. And this big thing here is also a karmelit. Okay, karpef is okay. This is also a karpef is a karmelit. Those are the same status because this is bigger than 2 bet se'ah, and this is also bigger than 2 bet se'ah. They're both enclosed, not for residential purposes, so they have the same status. And therefore, from right on the edge, I can go 2 amot this way and 2 amot that way. But what if, without noticing, some of the roof falls in? If some of the roof falls in and it goes under less than 2 bet se'ah, now it turns into a reshut hayachid. Because an area enclosed not for residential use that's less than 2 bet se'ah is a reshut hayachid that I can carry around the whole thing. Well, that's good. I can carry around the whole roof, but now I cannot transfer from reshut hayachid to a karmelit, which is this. And so therefore, we do not allow, even in the case where the roof is bigger, we do not allow transferring from here to there, because just in case one day the roof may fall in and I won't notice, and then I'll continue carrying. So that's why Shemuel would not allow that. מקרפף לקרפף נמי לא יטלטל, דימה מפחית והטל לטלטולה. Wait, in that case, let's say from here, let's say this is a karpef too. Can I carry from this karpef to that karpef? Well, I can't carry at all between them, but I can carry 4 amot. So can I go over here and just go right over the fence and carry from 2 amot and 2 amot? Right? Nobody said that was a problem. הטעם אם הפחית מנקרה למילתה, הכה אם הפחית למנקרה מילתה. No, it's different. In a case where it's all on the ground level, if this gets smaller, I'll notice, because I have this enclosure. Someone comes and moves the fence for some reason. I'll notice that it got smaller, and I'll measure it, and I'll see. Oh, now it's a shuta echid. Okay, I can't transfer anymore. But the roof, because it doesn't have wall, it doesn't have a fence around it, so it's hard to tell if some piece over here falls in and I'm over here, I'm not necessarily going to see it, and I may not notice. Therefore, there's no reason to make a gezerah from one outdoor space to the other, one karpef to another, but there is a reason to make that gezerah from the roof to the karpef. And so now we are able to apply basically the same principles as we saw in the Mishnah and the Rav and Shemuel, but when we apply them in multiple different cases, we see that Rav and Shemuel's opinions actually switch. And so those are the basic principles. And tomorrow's daf we'll see yet more applications of these two different opinions. Baruch Adonai L'olam. Amen ve'amen.